Okay, I think we're going to start. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. As you all know, I am Karen Silovitz, your Ward 5 councillor, and welcome to this evening's Ward 5 Civic Engagement Committee meeting featuring urban forestry programs and services at the City of Richmond Hill, which will be presented tonight by two of our staff members, Anne-Marie Ferrugia and Joanne Armstrong from Urban Forestry, Environmental and Horticulture. We also have with us tonight Pat Pollock, who is the chair of the Ward 5 Civic Engagement Committee. Welcome, Pat. And if you could all keep your make sure your microphones are muted unless you're speaking. That keeps the background noise out. How we do this is very simple. I do the welcome, then we do the presentation by staff, and then we'll have an open forum with a question and answer period. If you have any concerns or any questions you wish to put forward, and then I'll do a closing, and then following that, there you go. Microphone, please make sure you're muted. And please note this meeting is being recorded. I'm also going to take a screenshot of it, and we are going to make it publicly available. You can turn off your video if you are not speaking. It's completely up to you. And then if you could use the raise your hand button at the bottom, the little yellow hand or whatever color it might be, when you wish to ask a question. And I will come to you through the screen. And if we could please make sure that background noise is always kept to a minimum if you are speaking. Otherwise, it can be very disconcerting for everybody who's on the call. We will go through the presentation in its entirety, and then we will have questions and answers at the end. That's a much smoother way of doing everything. So if you do have questions through the presentation, you can mark down the number, the screen number that you want, the slide number that you're referring to, and we can pull it back up. And if you've got any specific questions from the presentation perspective, then you can write them down as well. So without further ado, I'm looking forward to this evening. And I would like to introduce you all to Anne-Marie Ferrugia and Joanne Armstrong from the City of Richmond Hill. Ladies, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Joanne's just going to pop up our presentation.
Okay.
Does that look good for everyone?
That's good.
Okay, great. So thank you for inviting us to this evening's community engagement workshop. Again, my name is Anne-Marie Ferrugia. I'm the manager of urban forestry, natural environment, and horticulture. And I have with me here today Joanne Armstrong, who's our natural environment program coordinator on our team. Joanne, can you advance one slide? Thank you. So I'm just going to give you this slide here, gives you a little bit of an overview where our team sits within our public works division. So we're in one of 5 sections within public works, which is the operations center on at 1300 Elgin Mills Road East. This is a picture of our team at our last annual staff meeting. We have approximately about 50 people within the team. It's a mixture of different professionals, all that look after our natural environment within the city. Within our public works team, we also have our park services and infrastructure, and that's a team that looks after all of the splash pads, playgrounds, sports fields. So we call that the hard infrastructure of our parks team, and then our team, the team that me and Joanne are on, look after all the green infrastructure for the city. Then we have our Public Works Support Services, and that's a team where they support all of the teams within the public works. So they manage our fleet, they manage our work runner management system, they oversee all of our training. Then we also have a water and wastewater and roads. So this team looks after all of the storm ponds, our distribution of our drinking water, and all of our road assets in the public realm. And then finally, our energy and waste team, which look after all of our street lights. This team looks after all of the waste contracts, so all of the Miller waste that picks up our garbage and organic waste material. And so that makes up our public works division, and we're one of 5. Joanne, can you advance one slide? So just like our team suggests, we have 3 distinct groups within the urban forestry, natural environment, and horticulture team. So the first team is the urban forestry team. Within this team, we have 6 arborists and 6 operators, 1 urban forestry inspector, which is it's a newer position to our team, and 1 coordinator, which is Joanne. And then we have three operators that look after all of the trails within this city. So we look after all of the city trees on streets and in parks, and any of the trees throughout our community centers, along trails, all of the woodlands, any trees that grow in the public realm that aren't privately owned, we look after. And we look after a lot of different, anything that impacts our urban canopy, things that we have had in the last probably decade or so is spongy moth. You probably remember that. Emerald ash borer. There's different things that impact our tree canopy, including severe storms. So those are the things that we deal with and we look after. The natural environment team, it's a smaller team. There's 2 project coordinators, a program coordinator, and then we have 2 program assistants. And this team looks after all of our programming related to looking after our natural environment. So our woodlot management program, they look after our community stewardship. So all of the public plantings that we have, and we have partners that we work with to do that type of work. They look after our community garden program. We have Richmond Hill Blooms, we have Healthy Yards, we have a lot of different programs. This group looks after wildlife management, so any of the wildlife that impact any of our city lands, they help to look after that, including education. So education is a big part of what they do. And then we have our horticulture team. In this team, we have 8 gardeners, 10 operators, and then in the summertime, we hire about 40 seasonals and students, and they help look after all of our public planting beds, all of our planters, all of our barrels and baskets throughout the city, watering them, planting them, weeding them, mulching them. They also put up the holiday lights in Richmond Green. So and this is in our parks and in the public realm. So all of those buffer streets between our sidewalks and those subdivisions, they'll look after all of those natural areas and do a lot of the horticultural maintenance. So Jen, can you advance one more slide? Okay, so we have a number of policy documents that guide the work that we do, and one of the main ones is our urban forest management plan. This was approved by Council in 2020, and it's a 20-year plan that guides how we look after our urban forest over the next 20 years. It highlights many of the benefits that urban trees provide to our community, and I'm sure a lot of people on this call know some of those things, and the tree on the image here kind of highlights a lot of those things that we know that trees provide, and we call them services or ecosystem services that they provide to our community. So, for example, they improve they clean our air. They absorb stormwater runoff. Trees moderate heat and climate within our community. They support wildlife. They contribute the aesthetic to our communities, increase property values. It's a lot of benefits to the community that trees provide. And I was in planning when this plan was developed. It was a plan that luckily I was able to lead, and I know it quite well. And when we did the public consultation for the urban forest management plan, what we learned is that the city of Richmond Hill and its residents very much value trees. And you can see it in a lot of the work that we do, a lot of the policies that council supports, from the official plan all the way to tree bylaws and the community programs that we're lucky that our council supports for our community. One other thing I can mention about the Urban Forest Management Plan, there's a number of goals and actions that this plan sets out in short, medium, and long term. So we have a cross-corporate working group across all departments across the city. It's not just our team that looks after trees. We have our counterparts in planning, our counterparts in bylaw, our counterparts in infrastructure delivery, in communications, and we all sit on this committee quarterly to talk about the work that we're doing and to collaborate on the work we're doing to advance the programs and the protection of trees and tree canopy in the city. Joanne, you can move ahead. Thank you. So one of the studies that we do is called the Urban Forest Study. We've done it twice round. So we did it once in 2012 and then again in 2022. And the reason that we do this is so that we can learn important information about our trees, and it helps guide the decision making. So what we learned in the last round when we did this study, and we do it in partnership with York Region, all the lower tier municipalities in York Region do a similar study so that we can compare and kind of see the canopy right across the region and then more on a local level in Richmond Hill. So from the study, we know that there are about 2.96 million trees, and that's across all property, public and private. For within the city, so what the city or municipal staff look after on city streets and parks, it's about 75,000 inventory trees. And that doesn't include all the trees within all of our woodlots and natural areas and ravines. What we learned also between the 2012 study and the 2022 study is that our tree canopy increased. So it went from occupying 25% of the landmass in Richmond Hill to 30%. And what we can attribute to that growth, number one, was that the trees that had been planted in some of the newer subdivisions and across the Oak Ridges Corridor Park, within the cemetery, they had all grown. So that helped contribute to the canopy cover increase. We also saw an immense amount of restoration planting within our valleys through the work that we've done in private properties and in the Corridor Park. There was a lot of new growth and tree planting, whether it was through our programs or secured through development, where we have a development come in and then we secure planting through the developer to increase canopy. So we did see an increase. We also learned that our canopy cover is quite young. So 71% of our trees are 15 centimeters or less in diameter, and we usually measure at breast height. So they're quite small. Only 2% of our trees are 46 centimeters and greater. So what we do know is that our canopy is quite young. There is room to grow, but it also means that if we are going to protect our canopy cover, it's about protecting those small trees and allowing them to increase to full maturity. We also know that 75% of our tree canopy is on private land. So there's a lot of trees in Richmond Hill, but a lot of them occupy private property, which means we don't have we as a city don't manage them. And then on the right side of the slide, you'll see a percentage of the top, I think it's 10 species in Richmond Hill. So the top most prevalent species is the eastern white cedar. It's a native tree. The second one below that is European buckthorn. It is not a native tree. It's quite invasive, and that's why we see it quite high. Right. Not one that we like, and we try and manage it in areas where we can, but it is a common species in Richmond Hill. And then the third one is eastern white pine. Again, move on, Joanne. So we just want to talk a little bit about public trees versus private trees. So So the city trees that we manage, like I mentioned before, are trees on city boulevards, in parks, in open spaces, anywhere within the public realm. We look after those trees. If there are trees that fall on a property line, our trees on city lands bylaw defines a city tree is a trunk at the base has to be at least if it's more than half on city property, then it is a city tree for us to manage. The trees along regional roads are owned and maintained by York Region. So those are the only trees on public property that we do not look after. For private trees, it's any trees that are located on private property, and the city does not do any maintenance on these trees. They are the responsibility of the private homeowners or private businesses. In order to protect tree canopy, we do have a private tree bylaw. It's been in place probably more than 15 years. It was updated, I think, in the last year or 2 years, and it protects all trees that are 15 centimeters. The side says 20, but it actually has been updated to 15. So any trees that are 15 centimeters or greater, you require a permit to do any to remove it, or if you're going to remove more than 25% of the tree canopy. One other important thing to note is that if there are trees that are impacting clearances or that are impacting the right of way, the city has the ability to do maintenance on those trees. We will, if it is a private tree, if there's limbs, blocking a sidewalk, we'll leave a door hanger at the property 24 to 36 hours in advance, so that if you want to prune that tree, rather than the city team pruning it, you would have that advance warning, or you can contact the cities to let us know that you're going to look after it, so that we can eliminate those impacts to sight lines or hazards for people that are walking on sidewalks. If there are hazardous trees on private property, so if there's a dead tree that has the potential for falling on a neighbor or onto a city street, it would be covered under the property standards bylaw. So the property owner may be ordered to maintain that tree or to remove the hazard, so it doesn't impact neighboring properties or hazard to streets or cars or things like that. And if the homeowner isn't able to, the city that may hire a contractor to do that work, but then it would be charged back through their property taxes. And I think that's it for that slide. Thanks, Joanne. You can move ahead one more. We also wanted to talk a little bit about our naturalized areas and our open spaces. We do have a lot of homes that back onto natural areas. We do have a lot of parks and wonderful trails that have natural areas with large trees. We do trail inspections annually, so we do manage hazard trees along trails. And when it comes to bordering trees along private property, we rely on the homeowners to call in and let us know if there's any hazards, and we'll go out and inspect the trees. If they're trees that have to come down, or if there's any work that we need to do on them, we would prune the limbs or bring down the tree to ground level, and we in a natural area, we leave the tree on the forest floor, the woodland floor, to decompose. So we'll get it to the ground, we'll cut it up, make sure it's safely on the ground, and then we leave it there. A lot of people want us to take that wood away so they have a clean forest floor, but forests need the nutrients of fallen branches and logs and to create habitat for wildlife and for those nutrients to go back into the forest floor.
Next slide.
And maybe should I wait till we knit? Okay, thank you. We also have trees in new subdivisions. These trees are either planted by the developer or planted by the city on behalf of the developer. So if we are planting it on the behalf of the developer will pay funds to the city, and then our team will plant those trees. Or the developer, in most cases, in more recent years, the developer opts to plant the trees themselves, and then they would plant them within the new subdivisions, whether it's on boulevards and within the neighborhood or on walkways. These trees for the first 2 years have a 2-year warranty. So that would means that, and they would also remain under the responsibility of the developer. So if the developer plants them, they're responsible for them for the first 2 years, watering them, maintaining them, mulching them. And then after the 2 years, we'll go and inspect them. And if we're ready to take them on, at that point, that they would, the ownership would move over to the city. So if there's any issues with trees within new subdivisions, it's usually a call to the city, and then we often would have to redirect them back to the developer to deal with any deficiencies, or if a tree has died within that warranty period. And I think at this point, I'm handing it over to Joanne, that's going to take you to some of the most common calls that we get about city trees.
Perfect. Thanks, Anne Marie. So like she said, these are just some of the common types of calls that we get. And these are directed through Access Richmond Hill. So they will help you kind of sort them into one of these types. It's not up to you to kind of know which case type, and they'll help you kind of direct that. But these are just kind of good for you to know, so you can call in and maybe get some help on certain things. So we'll start with our dispatch tree request. So this falls into our immediate priority rule. So for any city-owned street tree within parks or open spaces, boulevards, that requires an immediate dispatch, that certain trees, like if there's a drastic change in the structure, if it splits, or if the branches split off, if the tree structurally fails, causing immediate danger to public safety, if there are limbs overhanging or blocking traffic areas, roadways, sidewalks, driveways, that's an example of what we would call a dispatch. Something that doesn't really fit into this is like aesthetic kind of removing or pruning trees for aesthetic purposes. So we will not remove trees because of fallen leaves, stripping sap, acorns, or other aesthetic purposes. For safety reasons, city staff are not able to work in the vicinity of high voltage power lines, and we'll get the Electra involved with these, but that may be a reason for a delay. So this case type is for extreme situations. Like, does the situation require someone immediately to go out and clean this up? This is not storm related. There's a different kind of case for that. So for this case type, our service level, so for someone to inspect this, it is immediate, as soon as we can. And then the work is completed with up to 5 days. Examples of this, as you can see here, over a sidewalk, blocking someone's driveway, blocking the road. Like, these can pose immediate danger to people, obstruct traffic, obstruct the use of sidewalks, those kind of things. So our next one is storm related. So for any city-owned park trees, boulevard trees, those kind of things that have been affected by rain, wind, winter storms, including ice storms. So the service level for this is 2 days to inspect. So that means someone will go out and kind of see the damage and kind of assess what needs to be done. And then 5 days to complete the work. With that, there might be follow-up work, like a tree might need extra pruning because of the storm, and that may take up to 6 months. If there is like a severe storm, I would, like May 2021, there was that giant ice storm. So we can expect maybe more delays if there are a lot of trees down because of that. With that, tree replacements, I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next couple slides, but we almost always replace a tree if it needs to be removed. So if it does need to be removed, it'll be scheduled for removal and stump grinding, and a new tree will be added to the planting list for the next planting season. Our next priority rule, our next one is urgent tree inspection following the priority rule of high. And so this is something like falling a tree that has fallen, obstructing a pathway or a trail, not necessarily a sidewalk, but like a trail. If a tree is causing sightline issues or blocking traffic signs, if it poses immediate hazard to an adjacent building or infrastructure. With this, the service level is still pretty fast. So 2 days to inspect and 5 days to complete work, and similar if the work being required is not urgent, the follow-up can take up to 6 months. And so these are examples of something like that. So not blocking your driveway or blocking a sidewalk, but they're blocking the park pathways, which people still do need to use, but not as high priority as you're like blocking the road or sidewalk. Into our medium priority rule cases. So we have insect city tree. This is for any insects like spongy moth, emerald ash borer, or wasps. So wasp nests, for example, in city trees, we will take care of those if they are under 10 feet. They will be sprayed if they're considered a public safety hazard. And that's mostly due to like kind of location. Wasp nests will not be removed after they are sprayed, as they disintegrate naturally, and they also help deter more wasps from like coming in because they are quite territorial. And nests are not sprayed in the fall or winter. We also say under 10 feet because if we send someone up in a bucket truck to get something higher, there's not a good escape route if the wasps become agitated. So just for safety reasons, it's under 10 feet. Bees, I think you'll see in the following slides that we really do respect bees, and we find them like they're important pollinators and honey producers, so they're not removed. Most of the times you won't see them in nests in trees anyway. They're more of a cavity species. So most likely if you see a nest, there's wasps, not bees. As well, we do invasive species management, including spongy moth or emerald ash borer, and these are controlled during peak years. So a few years ago, you may remember the spongy moth craziness that happened. So we kind of did work to kind of track and manage those during that. They have gone through their cycle, so they're in their low season right now, and hopefully we have a few more years before they hit their peak again. Other insects like ants, aphids, so on and so forth, are not controlled on city trees. Our service level for this is 20 days to inspect and 30 days to complete the work. Now into our branch cleanup. These are for city-owned trees. For example, Anne-Marie kind of touches on this before, but debris in naturalized wooded areas are not going to be removed, and they're going to be left where they are to contribute to the natural ecosystem, habitat, nutrient cycling, like Anne-Marie said. There are several TRCA, Toronto Conservation Authority, properties throughout Richmond Hill. So inquiries about those properties will be forwarded to them. We can help direct that. If you know it's a TRCA property, you can direct it straight to them. So this case type is used for regular contract work when branches are left behind after work is completed. This does not include brush from residents' yard. And those should be put into yard waste, cut up into 1 meter lengths, and put out when the collection is there. Same service level, 20 days to inspect and 30 days to complete the work. Now we're into our standard priority rules. So the first one that this includes is our routine tree inspection. So this is one of the more common like case types that we get. So this can be to assess the health or condition of your boulevard tree, for an example. Also includes requests for tree removal if it's unhealthy, sick, or diseased. Request for staking. If you notice your trees like significantly leaning, that might be a solution, or if there are stakes still on your tree, if they need to be removed. I'll talk a little bit more about that. You can also request an inspection for a city tree located on another residence boulevard or in a park or something like that. Request for stumps to be removed. So these inspections kind of help determine the steps that are required to address the issue. So an arborist will go out and kind of determine what needs to happen next for the tree's health. So the service level for this one is 6 months to inspect and 6 months to complete the work. During our high season, it would be like closer to the end of that service level, just because we have so many of those case types. But during November to April, it might be a little bit faster. So this is an example of things you might kind of see on your tree that they're not dead, for example, they're not, but they also might be experiencing seasonal variances or something like that. And an arborist can kind of go out there and assess what's going on with your tree. Very closely related to that is just routine pruning. So this is the removal of branches to improve tree structure, removal of dead wood and lower tree limbs to provide clearance, and just anything that does not pose an immediate risk. We have implemented this year a upgraded block pruning program that moves from a 10-year cycle to a 7 to 8 year cycle for all of the city trees. The frequency may be higher for tree species that tend to grow faster than others, but all of that has been kind of factored into the cycle. So if you get a request and it's on the block pruning, it might happen later that year, or if it's just kind of not on the block pruning list, they might go prune it individually. Also, like Anne-Marie mentioned, when this occurs, residents will receive informational door hangers, and that kind of lets you know that it will be pruned. These are examples, just your routine pruning, not necessarily posing health and safety risks, but just kind of in the way of sightlines, sidewalks, that kind of thing. We're at our dead trees now. So if your tree is visibly dead, like the one in the photo, the Access Richmond Hill advisors will sort it into this. So this one, there are visible signs of tree death, including minimal to no foliage during the growing season, visible signs of decay, disease, rots, cracks, etc. The tree is visibly decaying and has the potential to cause damage. It's not necessarily causing damage right now, but it has the potential if it fell. A tree, for example, may decline in health due to lack of proper growing conditions for the variety of the tree, including soil and light conditions. Currently, our policy within the city is to kind of put the right tree in the right spot. But conditions change with development and all those things. So the light and the soil conditions may not be favorable for the tree now as it was when it was planted. It also may decline in health due to insects and disease, damage during harsh weather events, and seasonal variances. So the tree may look dead, but it may be having kind of a seasonal issue or stress. And tree health inspections will be completed by an arborist, and the outcome, if they're going to remove it, if they're going to prune it, something else, will be at their discretion. Following up with that, this is kind of the process of how our trees get removed. So it's in 3 separate stages. So early this year, our urban forestry team has been removing the trees, which means the canopy and the trunk are removed. Our contractor this year just started stumping, and that's grinding out the stump and root ball below 60 centimeters below grade. And then a planting contractor will come in and they will plant a 50 millimeter caliber tree. New trees are planted in the spring and fall. And similar to the developer trees, they have a 2-year warranty. And that means that the planting contractor is responsible for like mulching, watering, and just general health of the tree. If it dies within those 2 years, they're going to replace it, kind of thing. If your tree is being removed, the landscaping stones and ornaments need to be removed at the base of the tree, or your tree may get skipped. And this also kind of applies to pruning as well. If there's lights or ornaments are in the branches of the tree, your tree might not get the service it needs during that time. So these are kind of examples of your dead tree. Obviously, not having leaves during the growing season is a big tell. But you can also see that like this one right here has a giant crack, peeling bark, that kind of thing. So yeah. And that kind of leads into our planting requests. So city trees that are removed almost always get replanted. A tree may not get replanted because there's not enough spacing between existing trees, proximity to the light poles or other infrastructure, or if there's underground utility lines. As well with the planting, I can mention the staking. So although staking can provide support and protection for newly planted trees, it has been considered not to be best practice in recent times. The wind naturally creates a taper for the tree and builds a stronger tree trunk. Over time, the tree naturally knows where the wood needs to be built to ensure its stability and strength. If after planting, a city arborist has determined that the tree is healthy, staking will not be done. It can be done if the tree's leaning significantly. That's something that can be added, but generally not automatically done. All right, so with a newly planted tree, we do ask that if you leave, they will mulch the tree when it's planted, and then again before the maintenance periods ends. So if you leave the mulch that is added, this helps to minimize weeds and reduce moisture loss for newly planted trees. But also just make sure that you don't mount the mulch or have it too close to the trunk, because this can lead to rot. Do not attach or hang objects from the branches. This can cause damage and inhibit pruning. Do not create planter boxes around the base of the tree. This can change the grade and affects the movement of air and water through the soil or to the roots, and prevents further maintenance activities. Take care when you're mowing or removing weeds around the base of the tree. Try to hand pull to prevent the damaging the trunk, especially when it's new. Watering. So newly planted trees require consistent watering. Like I said, our contractor is responsible for watering for a certain amount. But if during areas of during times of extreme drought, especially during the first 2 to 3 growing seasons, trees generally need like 25 to 40 liters of water weekly, which is quite a lot. So our contractor may not be caught up on that. So you can kind of help us out with the watering. But if you feel like your tree, new or old, requires more maintenance, feel free to contact the city. So kind of moving on from our case types here, and going into our programs and initiatives, we're going to talk about Celebration Forest, the Healthy Arts Program, Community Stewardship Program, long-term woodlot restoration projects, community gardens, pollinator initiatives, and Richmond Hill Blooms. So the first one here, before I pass it off to Anne-Marie, is Celebration Forest. So this program offers residents the opportunity to donate and dedicate a planted tree to celebrate life events such as birthdays, anniversaries, weddings, to honor an important individual with nature in the city's parks and open spaces. So previously, all trees within this program were planted in the Celebration Forest in Phyllis Ralston Park. However, so many of you donated trees for your loved ones that we reached capacity in this, and we expanded it into other parks in the city. If you go onto the Richmond Hill website and this Celebration Forest, the list of parks that you can plant in is continually updated. So trees are planted each spring and fall as the requests come in. So if you request a tree in October, it should be planted in the next spring, so on and so forth with that. The fee this year is $484.33, and this includes the planting, a certificate, and a map of where the tree is located. There's also a similar bench program run by Parks, if that interests you as well. It's run a little bit differently, but all the information's on our website. And here you are, Anne-Marie.
Thank you. I'll try and keep moving along. I know we're getting close to running out of time. So our team also runs a program called the Healthy Arts Program. It's a program where we offer subsidized native trees, shrubs, wildflowers, composters, rain barrels to Richmond Hill residents. It's been a program that's been very well received, very popular since 2006. And it's a way for the city to help increase tree canopy on private property. That urban forest study that I mentioned earlier, one of the things it did identify is there is the most plantable space within Richmond Hill is on private property. So this is a way for the city to increase its tree canopy on private property by providing homeowners with a more affordable way to not only increase tree canopy, but with trees that are native to Richmond Hill. And the reason that we promote native trees and pollinators and shrubs is because they provide habitat for our local wildlife. They're more acclimatized to growing in Richmond Hill. So once established, they're more resistant to pests. In North America, they're more they need less watering because they're acclimatized to our climate. So there's many different reasons why we encourage people to plant native, and a lot of the trees that you'll find, or all of the trees you'll find through this program are native. This year, it's through Shopify, so you can go to our website, and there's an online store, so you can go in and look at all the different types of trees and shrubs that you can order. There's also the opportunity to buy rain barrels, the composters, shrubs, wildflowers. We partner with the Richmond Hill Horticultural Society, and they've been selling worm castings through our program. So the plant sale starts on April 16th, and then everything that you order, there's a pickup day on May 30th. So we call it the Healthy Arts event, and you can come to Richmond Green and pick up all the things that you've ordered. And it's a drive-through style, so you come in and you drive around to all the different stations and pick up the things that you've ordered. There's also an educational component to this program. So we run different workshops throughout the spring. We have some guides on the different types of plants that you can buy through the program. So it's a great way to learn about the different native trees and shrubs that you can find in Richmond Hill. And there's more information on our website, and the plant sale will be announced on there as well. The Community Stewardship Program, it's another long-standing program. It started in 1998, and since then we've worked with we planted 289,000 trees. It's a way that our community can get hands-on, get their hands dirty and work in our community to plant trees and look after trees and look after our natural areas. There's community cleanups that we do as well. This work is done with our partners. We partner with Toronto Region Conservation Authority, Ontario Streams, and an organization called LEAF, which stands for Local Enhancement and Appreciation of Forests. And they've been long-standing partners doing great work. They actually match the funds that Richmond Hill contributes to this program. So for every $2 we put in, the partner brings $1 to the table, and then they run the events for us on city land. We have a number of events coming up, April 18th, 19th, and 26th. If you'd like to participate in those events and more, we have lots of events throughout the summer with stewardship events. The information is on our website with richmondhill.ca/tree planting. We also have our Earth Day event, which we have a number of local schools come out this year. And for the last few years, it's been at that Didio Park. About 200 school kids come out. We plant about, I think, between 400 and 600 trees, depends every year. And it's a great day. I don't know, somehow we luck out with great weather almost every year when they come out. So it's part of the city's Earth Week events. Move on, Joanne. So we also have a forest restoration program, and that's more of a capital type program where they're a very large woodlot restoration program. This program, it was established coming out of the Emerald Ash Borer management strategy. So when the Emerald Ash Borer hit Richmond Hill in 2012, at that time, there was 9,000 street trees that were impacted. There was 15,000 inventoried park trees that were impacted. We had large woodlots. There were high percentage of ash trees. So there was a lot of work and investment in trying to manage the impact of the Emerald Ash Borer. So since that time, we've been slowly managing the woodlands that were impacted. We have done and continue to work in the David Dunlop Observatory. We have done the woodlots through the Sagion Trail system. We've worked on Beaver Woodland, and now we're moving into the Rouge River Headwaters woodland. So these are projects that we work with the Conservation Authority. They're great partners, bring great value and expertise to the projects. Each woodlot restoration project, it's a 5-year project. So in order to establish a woodlot, it does take time, and there's adaptive management. So we go in, we clear out all the hazards, then we go in and remove the invasives. We have to treat the invasives with herbicides to establish so that the competition with the native trees that we plant is managed. So then we do our native tree planting, and it's continually monitoring. So we'll go back and monitor, then we'll go back and do an infill planting. We continue to do invasive species management. So it does take 5 years before we can walk away and have that woodland start to thrive. So some of the ones that we started earlier on, the Beaver Woodland, which is approaching 10 years, we're starting to see the benefits of the work we've done. So this is a great program that's been around for 10 years, and we're lucky that we have council support, a program that helps to make sure that these natural areas are healthy, and we enhance and maintain them for the benefit of the community. A lot of them have trails that go through them, so residents are benefiting from them all the time. We'll move on to the next one. This is one of my favorite programs. It's the Community Garden Program. The community garden policy was approved in 2017. It's another policy that I helped develop. Through the program, we have two types of gardens. We have the community allotment garden, which we have one right now. It's in Phyllis Rawlinson Park. That's where residents of Richmond Hill can rent plots and grow vegetables in their own little plot. So you're kind of renting a space from the city. We have another allotment garden. We've been waiting for quite a number of years, since 2017, for another one. It's being created in Bridgeview Park, which is part of their park revitalization, and it's due to open in 2027. So those are two allotment styles. And then the other type of community garden is a collective garden, and that's where a group of individuals or an organization wants to maintain or grow a garden on public land. There is an application process. The applications are due in the fall, and part of the application is you need to have at least a group of 3 people. That's the minimum, because we need to know that there's a group of people that will look after the garden. And then you have to, as part of the application, describe to the city how you're going to give back to the community. These gardens are open to the public. They need to demonstrate whether it's contributing to pollinator habitat, some of the gardens that have been created, or just pollinator plants. And that's the type of garden it is. And then there's some of them that are, for example, Kids Right to Know and the Sussex Garden. So Kids Right to Know it's a nonprofit group. They work with a lot of youth. They're great at drumming up volunteers from the youth community, and they have just exponentially grown this garden, and it's beautiful. If you've ever wanted to go see it, it's at Spadina Parkette, across from Baby Hill Community Center, and they donate tons and tons of vegetables to the local food banks and to the local community. All the local community will come out and they'll get bags of groceries if they're happening to pick that day. This is Sussex Park is with the Salvation Army, and it's usually a women's group that comes out, and it's right beside a playground. So the women bring their children, the children go and play in the playground, and then the women get together and they look after the garden. We have a garden at the Burr House, so they grow plants for their dyes for the Potters Guild. And then we have the Harmony Garden, which is a pollinator garden. And there's a few more that are not on this slide that are a little newer. But it's been a great model. We've been able, and the fact that we've been able to almost have 1 to 2 new gardens every year just shows how well the model that we have and how it works with our community, and the amount of food that they give back to the community and the amount of benefit they give back to the community is great. And it's just, everyone's just happy in these places. It's a great place to go and visit. And I think we have a couple more slides and we're almost done, I promise. And we have a number of programs that support pollinators. It is not under one big umbrella, but we have a number of different things that we're doing across the city. Every year we designate the Pollinator Week proclamation during June. We again sell plants through the Healthy Yards program. We run a number of workshops, and a couple of them are on the screen. So we have Maximizing Your Yard and the Richmond Hill Blooms opening on May 13th. And last year, we created 5 Indigenous medicine gardens at DDO, Richmond Green, Lakewell Cox, the Hill Hospice, and Rawlinson. And all of the plants, we have sweetgrass and prairie sage that are harvested by an urban Indigenous partner that we have at the city who runs programming out of the library. Our gardens, we have almost one in each of our gardener zones. So each of our gardeners get to look after one of the gardens, and then they're open to the community, and then they're harvested by our partner and used for programming. And then the last program I'm going to highlight is our Richmond Hill Blooms. It's another longstanding program. It's about recognizing beautiful gardens in our neighborhoods, where residents can nominate other gardens. And if you're nominated, you get a nice lawn sign to show off to your community that your garden has been nominated. We have educational workshops that are delivered through this program, and then we have an end of season celebration at Richmond Green, where we have a lot of the community garden groups come out. We have a lot of our nonprofits groups, and it's a celebration for, we've made all of the gardeners to come out and kind of learn from one another, share plants and things like that. And so we'll have the nomination period will open up later this summer or spring summer, and then the lawn signs go out, I believe, in July. And then I think that brings us to the end of our presentation. Yes, so if anyone has any questions, this just is an infographic that we produce every year of the different, like all the accomplishments that the city achieves through the forestry and natural environment programs of the city. So happy to take any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you so much, Anne Marie and Joanne. That was incredible, incredibly informative, lots of information. I do have a copy of the slide deck. If anybody would like to see it on their screens, just send me an email and I can send you a copy for your own use, not for publication. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to go to questions. I can already see some hands. When I come to you on the screen, could we clear the screen of the slide deck, please, so I can see everybody? So if you have a question or a comment or anything you would like to talk about, then just raise your hand at the bottom. If you go down to the raise hand section in your bar, just click that button, and I'll go along the screen, and anybody can ask any questions. You can come back. And we'll hopefully get some good interaction here between our residents and our staff. But again, thank you, Anne Marie and Joanne. That was really amazing. There will also be information about the workshops that were discussed here. That'll come in my electronic newsletter. And will be on the website. So let's open the floor to questions. And the first one I see is Martha Forge. Martha, if you could unmute yourself and put your screen on, put your camera on, we'd appreciate it.
Unmute your screen.
Oh, it's Jeff.
Yes.
Okay. Martha
Martha.
or Jeff, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And thank you for the presentation. I have a few questions and concerns. I did a quick calculation last year, and given that there are maybe 155 parks in the city of Richmond Hill, and if each of those parks lost one tree due to drought, which I think is a reasonable number, the city is losing more than $100,000 a year because of trees are dying because they're not being watered. So I'm just wondering, would it not be feasible to hire a student and just to go around and water some of the trees that really maybe water once or twice a week, or sorry, once a week, or maybe once every 2 weeks? And, I mean, they'd save the trees, but also save quite a bit of money, given that each tree possibly costs around $800. In the local park where I pass every day, there were 6 oak trees planted, and 6 of those oak trees have died. Actually, 5 have died, and 1 is half dead.
That's right.
So I'm just wondering, is it not feasible to hire maybe students or to go around and watering the trees? That's my first question, and I have one more, but I'll just leave it that way.
So let's deal with that one first.
Thank
Thank you, Jeff. Anne Marie, over to you.
Watering trees is a challenge. It's not a simple task of having students water. Watering requires large trucks, large hoses. It's not something that a student would be able to do, so it can be very costly. We do have 71,000 trees that the city owns on our streets and in our parks. So it's not a easy or feasible task to water. Trees that are under warranty, if they are newly planted, they will get replaced, and the developer and or the contractor is responsible for watering, and we try to make them accountable as best as we can to water. Developers, it's difficult to have them water. We may we try and get them to water, but if they just wait, sometimes they'll just wait to the end of the 2 years to see if it lives, and then they'll just replace it at that point. We won't take anything that has died, but watering with a developer can be a little bit tricky. For our trees that we plant, we require the contractor to water. For trees that are established, we don't have to water them as much. And sometimes we don't, like, trees may die because of lack of watering, but there's also other stressors that cause trees to die. We do water, but to the extent of watering every single tree at the city is not feasible.
No,
Okay. Any comments, Jeff?
yeah, I mean, given that you're spending more than $100,000 a year to replace dead trees, that does leave an awful lot of room to, to buy the necessary equipment. And at least if you're able to save half of them, that would be at least $50,000 a year in savings.
Yeah.
And so that would, year after year, $50,000 would certainly cover a lot of equipment. So, I must take exception to what you
without giving
said.
too much away, the cost of our trees is roughly about half of that. But yes, I do. And I do see your point in that, like, we do spend money on watering, but to water every single tree would be quite costly.
Okay.
Not
well,
only that, if I may, equipment for that, Jeff, I'm sure you can appreciate, is incredibly expensive. So that would have to go to something in the capital budget in order to see if we can supply that. So valid points for sure. And I'm definitely going to bring, I know we've discussed these concerns between ourselves before, and I am definitely going to bring those concerns to next budget cycle. They can definitely be discussed as to how we could perhaps increase the watering. But as Anne-Marie said, it's not just a simple thing, which I'm sure you can appreciate.
Yeah, no, I understand that. But, I mean, as I say, there's
Next
quite a bit of room
question.
for money savings. But anyway, my second point is, and I made this in my presentation to council, is why not engage the ratepayers as partners to help water the tree? I know I watered a tree across from my lot, and if I hadn't watered that tree, it would have been dead by now. You mentioned that you put a little door hanger on when a tree is to be planted. Well, the same could be done at the beginning of the season or included with the water bill that, please water, let's protect our urban forest. Can you water the tree in front of your house? And I'm sure a lot of people would respond to that in a very positive way by helping out and watering the trees in front of their house. Because I noticed as well that a lot of the trees along the boulevard and on the strip between the sidewalk and the road, a lot of those die, unfortunately, because of lack of water. And I think the, ratepayers would probably be more than happy, given a little bit of encouragement, to help in the watering of those trees. That's just a suggestion.
It's a good point. It's a very good point. Very good point. I think perhaps something in the water bill is possible as well, because it could be a sticker or just something else that's added to that when it's mailed. So that's a really, really good point, Jeff. Thank you. Anne-Marie, can you comment on that at all? Because I think that's a very good idea, that we can use something we've already got in place to alert our residents to help us with the watering, especially with climate change as we move into these dreadful heat periods when there is no rain.
Yeah, we are exploring some type of engagement or communication. I think it may have been as a result of the delegation to council that I think you had provided.
Yes.
So we are working with communications, on whether it's through social media. There are a little bit of restrictions around what goes into the water bill, but we're looking at different ways that we can engage in the community and looking after our urban tree canopy, including watering. It's one of the ways, one of the big ways to help our trees in Richmond Hill, but there's a lot of different things that we can be doing, and we're looking at different things. So even like games at events or things, all the different ways that we engage with the community. We're looking at all the different at all those different tools to try and talk to people about watering trees.
That's great. Thank you, Anne Marie.
Anyway,
There you
thank you
see.
both, Anne Marie
Yeah.
and Joanne.
Oh,
I
you're welcome.
appreciate, I appreciate your work in this presentation. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Jeff. And you see, deputations to council do actually work in the public forum. If you want to bring to us a particular concern of yours, which Jeff did a couple of months ago, it definitely caught my attention, and I spoke with Anne Marie about it. And actually, this particular Ward 5 Civic Engagement Committee meeting also the subject stems from Jeff's deputation. So, Jeff, good work, my friend.
No, well, thank you, Karen, for all the work you've done. I
You're
certainly
welcome.
appreciate everything you've done. Thank you.
That's
Oh, geez. Can't hear her.
Unmute.
Counselor, we can't hear you.
I feel like she dropped off.
okay.
Oh, no, she's there.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'm sorry. I can sometimes be a bit iffy here. Okay, so our next speaker is Joan. Joan, you are unmuted. Go ahead.
Oh, hi. Good evening. Thank you for the presentation. I really enjoyed it. And Jeff, just along with his comment about watering, it's great to have people out to water, but you need to train them how to water. I worked for a grower out of Leamington, and I supplied all the Home Depots and Costco's in the area, their seasonal product, and the staff at the stores had to water, and they basically just watered the air. Like they did nothing to the bottom of the pot. So I think it's really important to whoever is sent out to do watering is taught to make sure they soak the soil and not the leaves.
Good point.
So just aside from that's just from my past working life. But I wanted to ask a question about the public versus the private slide. The plant that is the new tree that is put on the boulevard, I'm not sure if I missed it, but the resident is responsible for watering that, correct? A new tree a city tree that's planted on the boulevard. The city doesn't come around and water it, do they?
No.
Go ahead, Anne Marie.
The contractor is required to water it.
And
because it's under their warranty for 2 years.
Okay.
No.
So then
we ask residents if they would assist by watering, but we don't require residents to water.
And is there follow-up to that tree in 2 years to see the health of it or if it's died? Because
every year we do deficiency inspections.
Okay.
And then the contractor gets a list of all the trees that have died in the first year and in the second year to replace. So then they would come back and replant the tree if it dies. Yeah.
And then how long would they come and how often or how long would they come and water that newly planted tree for the 2 years?
We require them to water through the season, watching the weather. And if we see that they need to be watered, we will call them into water.
Okay, because I've not seen trees.
Yeah.
Now I'm not watching 24/7 either, but I was curious. And also my only other question is, if you said you did updates and made some changes in the last year, and if a tree is 15 centimeters in diameter, you require a permit?
If you're going to remove it, a healthy tree, like a tree that's 15 centimeters or greater, or remove 25% or more of the canopy.
Okay. So 15 centimeters, that's under 7 inches, right? So that's pretty much any tree ever you would need if it's not completely dead.
If it's dead, you get an exemption, and then or if it's hazardous, you could remove it right away and it would be exempt afterwards. But if it is a healthy tree, 15 centimeters, you would definitely need a permit.
So that's but a 6-inch tree, that's about every tree in Richmond Hill. There's not too many trees that you'd even buy that's less than that. So it's pretty well every tree. I had an issue.
For reference, sorry, your tree that like a newly planted tree on a boulevard, that's a 5 centimeter tree, just so you can have that kind of
Yeah.
reference. So
So 5.9 centimeters is just about any tree that I would buy at the garden center as well, right? Anyway, I had an issue with the tree level.
My advice to any resident is if you have a tree on your property that you wish to remove or you wish to prune, um, regardless of the size of the tree, contact the city, contact me, and I'll make sure that you get the right people will contact you to ensure that everything is done correctly. That to me, Joan, that would just be a rule of thumb.
I did that. I had arborists, and I had the city come last year. Like, I sort of went through that. And if I was to take the tree down, I would have had to replace it with about, I don't know how many, it was about 70 centimeters.
Okay.
70
okay.
centimeters. And would have cost me a fortune. But the arborist said it was dead, but the city said it wasn't dead. So I wasn't able to, it was too costly either way. So my neighbors just have to look at it. But it's just almost every tree you need a permit for. I wouldn't take a healthy tree down anyway. So, okay, I just wanted to double check that. So I know it's in the bylaws online as well.
It sure is. Thank you, Joan. And if I may, Anne Marie, just to follow on with that, what is the process if somebody does remove or injure a tree illegally? What is the process through the city that I'm informed or the city is informed, and then there's a whole process that follows with horticulture as well as bylaw, and there are fines that are issued if necessary, and there's a replanting ratio. Could you just discuss that for just a few minutes?
Yeah, I will do my best. It's not the bylaw that you're talking about is the private tree bylaw, which is administered by our counterparts in Parks and Natural Heritage Planning. So it's the planning team. But if there was a tree that was impacted illegally, the first thing you would do is call Access Richmond Hill, and they will forward it to, there's tree bylaw officers that work out of that team, and they'll come out and assess the damage, do their investigation, collect any evidence, and then at that point, they will contact the resident or the homeowner to determine next steps. So if it is determined that the tree was taken down illegally, then there would be potentially a fine. There would be replacement requirements and there's calculations, there's a methodology in how they determine the amount of trees or the fine that they would have to pay. I don't know all of the details of it because my team doesn't administer it. We look after all of the publicly owned trees, and they look after trees on private property.
From what I recall, it's a 6-to-1 ratio or a 7-to-1 ratio. If a tree is removed illegally, then one is expected to replant it by that amount. And that also helps to ensure that our tree canopy remains protected. So that I do know that part of it. I've certainly dealt with it a number of times.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Anne Marie. Joan, is that all? Any further questions?
I've been noticing along Arnold Avenue, they're taking an awful lot of trees down. I'm not sure if they're widening it or what they're doing. If those trees were deemed healthy, would the city be replacing those trees elsewhere?
Yes. So yes. that there's a road capital project going on right now. So if there are trees coming down as part, so with that, when there's road reconstructions, those drawings are circulated to my team. So Joanne will circulate it to we have our urban forestry supervisor, myself, our parks infrastructure team, and we'll make comments on it with respect to the sidewalk and the boulevard. And at that point, we would ensure that as part of the planting plans that they are replacing the trees in situ or elsewhere within the city.
Okay, thank you. No, that's all.
Thank you. Yeah, what they're doing on Arnold is a massive capital project, and they're replacing, it's an upgrade, replacing the open culverts with closed sewers. So, and it's a very, very good thing that's happening. But I must say that if I've driven Arnold, it is in quite the state. So it's avoid it at all costs if you can. Okay, thank you, Joan. Okay, my next hand up I see is Warren. Professor, it's all yours.
Yeah, hi. And first of all, Anne Marie and Joanne, great presentation with some really, really good information, really in depth. So that was great. I have like super spidey senses when it comes to urban tree programs, and you're doing a good job. I see things happening. Trees are coming down and they're being replaced. In particular, I'm in Don Head Village. And for some reason, back in the day, probably like the early 80s, late 70s, they planted monoculture of all Norway maples. And Richmond Hill has a lot of clay. So they got planted in like clay pots, and they're like a fish in a little fish bowl. They can only get so big and they'll never penetrate beyond that clay pot. One concern I have is a couple years ago, I just happened to see tree planting near the police station, and they were using an auger to make the holes, like drill the holes, which kind of I know I'm getting like super picky, but it kind of glazes when you're in clay. It glazes the side of the hole, and it can't really, the roots have a hard time penetrating. But it's probably worse that it was Norway. It wasn't Norway maple, so we moved on from that. And just further on Jeff's point, I guess in an ideal world, if we could have like neighborhood tree watering captains, it'd be perfect. Couple of 5-gallon pails from Home Depot, a little wagon. But I also aware enough to know that if you're depending heavily on volunteers, sometimes that always doesn't work out as well either. So, maybe with a mix there, I find it really hard to overwater newly planted trees. So, and just another further note, like an excellent case study, right tree, right place, is down on Leora Court. Years ago, they planted a bunch of catalpas there. Those trees are booming. Like you talk about a right tree, right place, happy tree. Those trees are massive for like how long ago they were planted. My only beef again is they see to plant all the one variety on the whole street. They didn't intersperse them with like 3 or 4 other varieties. But you guys are doing good. I really watch what's going on, and I see good things, and I see you're trying to keep up. And it's really like ideally in a perfect world, you do proactive tree pruning with, young trees. But when you have storms and microbursts and stuff happens, and it's really hard to get ahead of it. But I see you're trying. So thank you.
Thank you, Warren.
Thank you, Warren.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Appreciate it. Very good points, actually. Very good points. Thank you.
I think also, sorry, to
No, go ahead.
kind of wrap up some of your comments there, Warren, like with us, we are trying, like you said, we're trying our hardest, but there's also other entities within the city that plant or regionally or something like that. So we're trying to make all of our standards match. But if they use a different contractor or something like that, or a different developer, maybe it's a little harder with the watering or something like that. But it's nice to see that people are seeing that we're trying to water and trying to plant the right tree in the right place. So it's
And
good.
I guess the other thing I can add, I'm sure that everyone on this call loves trees, but not everybody does. So sometimes we'll plant a tree in front of someone's house, and they think we should be watering, and it shouldn't be us asking them to water. So it's not always an easy request of people, and some people love that tree, but there's some people that aren't as supporters of trees. So it's a constant education, it's constant communication with residents, and sometimes we are successful in encouraging people to look after our trees, but not everybody is as helpful.
Yeah, that's very true. And you can also overwater trees as well. So especially a baby tree, one has to be very careful. Anne-Marie, speak to the planting of like species, because I know from our internal discussions what a wake-up call the emerald ash borer tragedy, as far as I'm concerned, was. And then and I know that we realized that you can't plant the same trees in a line or over and over and over again, because if God forbid something happens again, and it's happened many times and it will continue to happen, you lose that entire species. So as the municipality, how do we ensure best practices there, that we are planting different species?
So the direction for that, it comes right from our urban forest management plan. So we have specific actions that are tied to biodiversity and making sure that our planting plans have a good mix of different types of species. When we develop parks, we have a good mix of different types of species, or when we're planning streets or neighborhoods, there's different types of species. So that's something that through we have a review process where, whether it's a subdivision, a site plan, a new park development, a road reconstruction, those plans are circulated across the city to the different departments. And my team, together with the Parks and Natural Heritage Planning team, we're always looking at the species diversity in any of our projects. And then when we're doing removals and replacements just on city streets, we are looking at the species on those streets when we're doing our species selection to ensure there's that diversity. In some neighborhoods, like Warren said, especially in his neighborhood on Regent Street, like those streets were planned with all that uniformity. And it does create that aesthetic that people have grown to love. But at the same time, it is a constant education on why that it's such a huge risk when you have entire streets with all one species. And a lot of them, they're all the same age. So they're reaching that end of life. So those Norway maples that Warren was talking about, a lot of them are reaching their end of life because of those clay pots that he's talking about, that they're just, it's too, there's no more room to grow, and we're starting to see those decline. So when we're doing our replacement planting, we're trying to diversify as much as we can, which means you're going to get different types of trees all the way up and down streets. But in the long run, what we've seen, if you live on Innis or Church or Neighborly Lane or Harmony Hill,
That was hit so hard with the ice storm.
Trees, it was devastating. Like they lost all of the trees all at once because of the emerald ash borer. And now what we're really worried about is oak wilt. And that's another.
Yes, I was going to ask you about oak wilt. I while we're discussing this, I wanted to know. I've read about oak wilt, and that it has been found in Ontario, especially in Niagara region. And I was wondering if it has been found at all in our area of Southern Ontario, and what are we doing to make sure that we are being appropriate sentinels to make sure that we are watching that? Because I remember with the emerald ash borer, we used to have in some trees, you would see these strange cages, and that was, I learned through time that was to see if there were any insects there. So that was how a lot of the time forestry would watch the creep of emerald ash borer. So Anne Marie, anything on oak wilt?
So oak wilt is not here. We do, through our urban forest working group meeting, it's a topic that we touch on almost every time we meet to talk about the different things that we could be doing. Part of it is education of our teams, all of our teams, in recognizing and identifying oak wilt. We do change our practices in the way we maintain our trees. So oak trees are only pruned in the wintertime. We don't prune oak trees any other time of year to prevent spread of infection. So things like that. It's education with our through our website, through our events, just to talk to people about oak wilt, how to recognize it, and how to maintain their own oak trees so they're not they don't make their trees prone to it. Because once oak wilt hits, there's nothing really you can do to prevent it from that tree from dying. So that, like, we're really doing our best to try and minimize the susceptibility of oak wilt of our oak trees. And up until now, it's not here, we're not aware of it, but we're vigilant, and we're just trying to carefully manage the trees that we have.
Okay. And just talking about, I'll get to you in just one sec. Just talking about oak trees. just to go back to what Jeff was saying about these oak trees that he's seen, 6 of them, I think he said, which are dead, which would be in the Lennox Park, Harding Park area. Have we looked at that internally, Anne Marie? Are those trees diseased? Are they going to be cut down, and are they going to be replaced?
So I believe those ones were newly planted trees as part of the capital reconstruction. So again, those are trees that our capital construction team will plant through our park redevelopment. So, we work with them to make sure that those trees are planted as part of the warranty period. If it's past the warranty period, then our teams would look after them.
Okay, great. If you could put an asterisk on that one, and
Yep.
just I would definitely like to make sure that those are taken care of, because that is in Ward 5. Thank you.
For sure. I also, sorry to cut you off.
Go ahead.
I did a really quick look at our planting list for this spring, and we do have like 60 plus species for just our spring planting. To kind of go back to the species diversity there. And then I know specifically me and the forestry supervisor added a handful to the list this year that were maybe more drought tolerant, that kind of fit the sizes that we're seeing. So if there's maybe a tighter space between houses, we could still plant a tree there if it's not going to grow as tall or as wide or something like that. So our team's constantly trying to learn about new tree species and cultivars and all of those things. So our tree species list isn't set permanently, so we continually add to it and try to mitigate some of those issues. And we're learning about, like with oak wilt, there's maybe some varieties of oaks that aren't as susceptible. So learning about what's maybe good for that in case we have to kind of pivot and adjust if it does end up in our area.
Okay, that's good. Thank you, Joanne. Otto, just before I get to you, Jeff, did you have a follow-up on that particular subject?
Yeah, the 6 oak trees have been cut down already. They were cut down last.
Oh, they have. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're probably on our planting list for the spring, if I had to guess.
They will be replanted. Yeah, something will be replanted. Okay, that's good to know. Thank you, Jeff. We'll keep an eye on that anyway. Thanks, Anne Marie. Okay, Otto, thank you so much for your patience.
Actually,
go ahead,
Joanne,
sir.
you started to answer my question, because we got an ash that got knocked down in front of our house, and I live on the same street as Pat does, and we're seeing that diversity there. It's just really wonderful. And I was just tickled pink that we got an elm cultivar, or an elm hybrid, that was I was just tickled pink about that because it was there. I didn't get a letter with it explaining what the tree was good about, but I do think I got a note asking to water it whenever I got the chance. And so we did, and it's grown like crazy. It's really good. My question is more about, so it's it needs a pruning in some places. Can I do that, or should I call into the town to get that done?
Yeah, and definitely contact at Richmond Hill, either through phone or email. And then they'll ask you the necessary questions about your address, whatever. And we can add it to our list or check if it's on our scheduled block pruning list.
Okay, because it's been growing like crazy, and we're really happy.
Well, that's good. You're doing a good job at watering.
That's great.
Well, it was easy to do. The second question I have, when you were talking about hybrids and stuff, are you taking, as you're learning about the trees, also taking in mind climate change and the fact that we are changing zones as far as trees go? That's another thought that I'd throw out there. I haven't heard it quite yet, but certainly something I think about regularly when I'm in the forest up in the Oak Ridges corridor park, because we're seeing a lot of new things happening there.
For sure. I can start this off, Emery, if you want to add anything.
Go ahead.
But yeah, especially like kind of connecting to Jeff's question and everything, going with maybe some more drought tolerant species, while also kind of keeping in the back of our minds that they have to be okay in the clay and okay in more urban settings, but drought tolerance and species that maybe are a little more resilient to storm damage as climate change is going to.
Or salt.
Salt.
Salted.
Yes, lots of things. This winter was definitely hard on all of us, especially our trees too. So there's lots of studies, even with the TRCA, trying to figure out maybe more salt tolerant species and stuff like that. So there's lots of information coming up about that, and we're continually trying to learn.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
the urban forest management plan has action items to look and do like climate vulnerability studies, and we have added and started to experiment with some of those more Carolinian or southern tree species that typically, like I do live in Toronto, and I'm starting to see some of those introduced into our streetscapes that you would normally find, but because of the climate change, they're starting to introduce them. So like tulip tree is a common one in my neighborhood, what we normally wouldn't see, and we've introduced some of them here, and they're doing quite well. So it's always new research, and I have a great team that loves to learn and do. We have the opportunity to work with our counterparts in the Toronto Region Conservation Authority that do a great research in helping provide information in this respect. Our counterparts in York Region as well. There's a York Regional Urban Forest Working Group team that we work with all the time and share this type of information. We're lucky enough to attend some conferences where there's research being done through different international and national, where we get to learn about these different things. So it's something that we're constantly thinking about and planning for in the future. We have our environment strategy and climate change committee also that is also asking us how we're thinking about these things and planning for them. So it's something that's a constant thing. Even though we didn't touch on it today, it is an underlying theme in the work that we do to make sure that we're planning for it.
Thank you very much. And if anybody on this call or any of your neighbors, you have a specific tree that you're concerned about, just shoot me an email, give me its exact location, and I will make sure that Anne-Marie and the team, everybody gets the information that they require as quick as possible. So you can always do that. Just identify its position very clearly to me, and I'll make sure that's taken care of. Otto, was there anything further? Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, so I see Marta is on our call. So hi, Marta. Marta brought to my attention about a week or so ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, a concern she has about some fallen trees in the ravine behind her house. And I was just wondering, Marta, if you wanted to bring that to anybody's attention, because that's TRCA property.
I know. And I now remember when we had the ice storm that was what I was told. And so this was just a tree, that thunderstorm we had a couple of weeks ago. It got hit by lightning. It's cracked in the middle. It's right in the middle of like it's over the fence on the East John River property, like whatever. So I think I answered my question, Karen, that just is a natural, and it's just going to fall and do its thing. It's not going to fall into my property. I looked at it again, so it's just going to fall naturally. It looks ugly, but I'm going to have to live with it.
Okay, that's good. Unfortunately,
towards your house.
Sorry, go ahead, Anne-Marie.
We would go out and look at it, or we would have the TRC go out and look at it if there is a risk of it being hazardous, meaning it's going to hit something.
I don't think it will. I'll look at it again now that the snow is out of my backyard. I'll go and actually go closer to it, but I think it's leaning towards the river.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
If it isn't, I'll definitely call and let you know.
It's always worse in the winter when there's
really ugly. It looks really ugly.
When there's no leaves on the trees, you see it all, but then once everything falls down and the trees start to leaf out, you don't see that a lot of the fallen stuff, it gets covered up, so you don't see it as much. It's harder. You do notice it in the wintertime.
Okay.
Thanks for remembering that, Karen.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. It was on my to-do list.
Thank
so
you.
that's I can scratch that one off. And I see that Councillor Scott Thompson joined us halfway through our presentation. Thank you very much, Councillor Thompson, for joining us. Do you want to add anything to the conversation here?
No, I unfortunately I got here just as they were finishing the presentation and saying any questions. So I was able to be here for all the questions, and yeah, no, I think Anne Marie has certainly clarified things. I think a lot of people didn't realize that we do have contractor guarantees for things like that. So I think this is all good, and that's great information. So thank you guys, and Karen, thanks for hosting this. It's been great.
Of course, thank you, Councillor. I'll send you the slide deck so you can see what the presentation was prior to your joining the call. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, are there any more questions? Because I don't see any more hands raised. I'll just give that a couple of seconds. I've got someone new coming in. It's Nikki. Okay. I'll just say it one more time. Anybody have any more questions that you have for myself or for staff? Seeing none. Okay. Well, this has really been a fabulous evening. Again, thank you, Anne Marie and Joanne. You've done a fantastic job here. It's always such a pleasure when I ask or invite one of our departments to the Ward 5 Civic Engagement Committee meetings to give presentation and discussion, because it goes like this, and we've had many different departments, and it's deeply appreciated. You've spent a lot of time on that presentation, and it is the evening, so we really do appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much. I would also like to thank Ava Daneshvar, who is on our call as well. Ava, as I think you all know, is our Ward 5 Executive Assistant. There she is. And Ava is instrumental in helping me put all of this together with our Chair, Pat. And Ava, on behalf of all of our residents, thank you very much for this and for everything that you do. It's deeply appreciated. And just to remind everybody, just before we log off, my next councillor event takes place on May the 24th at the Richmond Hill Centre for the Performing Arts. All that information is either on my website or on my social media pages, and it comes up in the electronic newsletter. If you don't get my newsletter, please send me an email and we will make sure you're added to the list. But we'd love to see you join us on May 24th. We have two wonderful groups joining us for Songs from the Hill, Voices from the Hill presentation. And we have Chorus York, and we have another group, the Beverly Street group, that will also be performing. So we look forward to that. So I just wanted to bring that up. And then coming up the next week or so is the holidays for Easter and for Passover. So everybody on this call, I'd like to wish you, whatever you may celebrate, I want to wish you all a happy Easter and Chag Pesach Sameach to all of our Jewish people. And I wish you all health and prosperity as we go through these wonderful. We've just gone through Nowruz as well, the Persian celebration of the spring, and all these wonderful holidays that we do have that celebrate our the renewal of spring, which hopefully, please God, can give us a good renewal in Iran as well, and the Middle East. One can only hope that it spreads far and wide. So everybody, happy Easter and Chag Pesach Sameach for everybody. And I think that's all I have jotted down. So we're almost at the end of our time here. So thank you again, everybody. This has been a wonderful evening. I hope everybody enjoyed it. We'll have one more Ward 5 Civic Engagement Committee meeting this term, this next quarter. So because this is an election year, I am limited in what I can do after May the 1st, but I do believe I would be permitted to have one more Ward 5 Civic Engagement Committee meeting before the end of July, because that is our cutoff date. Hence, my event is taking place in May. So I will make sure that everybody is aware of that. And if you've got any ideas and you would like to shoot them by me and say, let's have this discussion, please bring it to me. I would be very, very interested to know what it is we can bring to you in July, and then, please God, further on. So thank you all very, very much. Have a wonderful evening. And again, my thanks to staff for everything that you do. It's deeply appreciated. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good
Thanks
night.
for having us.
You're welcome.